I still remember the exact second everything changed, when she stood in the middle of our small living room, her hands shaking, holding a phone that wasn't mine. Her eyes were filled with betrayal, confusion, and something even more painful, doubt about every memory we had built together. "You pretended to be poor just to marry me? Who are you?" she asked, her voice breaking. I took a deep breath, feeling years of silence crash down at once, and replied softly, "I wanted real love." If you've ever loved someone so deeply that you were willing to lose everything for the truth of their heart, then stay with me, because this is where the real story begins. When I first met her, I had already learned one cruel lesson in life: money attracts attention, but rarely affection. I grew up with wealth I never asked for, in a family where trust was replaced by contracts and relationships were measured by status. I had seen women fall in love with my last name before they ever learned my first. So one day, I walked away, from the luxury apartment, from the driver, from the tailored suits, and I became invisible. I moved into a modest neighborhood, rented a small room, and took a simple job under a different name. That's where she entered my life, not as a gold digger or a dreamer, but as a woman carrying her own quiet struggles. She worked long hours, smiled through exhaustion, and still found kindness for strangers. We met at a small roadside cafe when she paid for my tea because I was short on cash. That moment embarrassed me more than any business failure ever had, but she just laughed and said, "It's okay, everyone needs help sometimes." From that day, we talked about dreams, fears, broken families, and hope. I told her I had nothing special to offer except honesty and loyalty. She told me that was more than enough. For the first time in my life, someone loved me for who I was pretending to be, but that version was closer to my real self than the rich man I had been born as. Our relationship grew slowly, beautifully. We struggled together. There were days we couldn't afford dinner outside, days when power cuts forced us to talk in candlelight, days when she encouraged me not to give up when I felt like a failure. She never once complained about money. Instead, she believed in effort, in patience, in building a future step by step. When I proposed with a simple ring I bought after months of saving, she cried, not because it was small, but because it was sincere. I almost told her the truth that day. I almost shattered the illusion. But fear held me back, fear that she might look at me differently, fear that love might turn into admiration, or worse, expectation that we married quietly, without luxury or guests who cared about status. Those were the happiest months of my life. I felt free, human, equal. But secrets have weight, and mine grew heavier with every passing day. The truth finally came out not by my choice, but by fate. A business partner recognized me at a distance. A phone call. A name spoken too loudly. And suddenly, the world I had hidden crashed into the life we built. That's when she asked the question that cut deeper than any accusation: was everything a lie? I didn't answer immediately. I walked closer, looked her in the eyes, and told her everything, about my past, my wealth, my fear, and my desperate desire to be loved without conditions. I told her I pretended to be poor not to deceive her heart, but to protect mine. Silence filled the room. Her tears fell not from anger alone, but from heartbreak. She felt foolish, betrayed, and small. "You took my choice away," she said. "You didn't trust me with the truth." That night, she left to stay with her sister, and I realized that loving someone isn't just about intentions, it's about honesty, even when it's terrifying. Days passed like years. I stopped hiding. I returned to my real name, my responsibilities, my wealth, but none of it mattered because the woman I loved wasn't beside me. I wrote her letters, not to justify myself, but to apologize. I told her I was ready to lose her if that was the price of finally being honest. I told her she deserved the truth from the beginning. One evening, she asked to meet me. I arrived not in a luxury car, but on foot, wearing the same simple clothes she first knew me in. She looked at me for a long time before speaking. "I loved you when you had nothing," she said quietly. "I just needed to know if that man was real." I answered, "He was always real. The money was the disguise." That was the moment she understood, not instantly, not easily, but honestly. We didn't fix everything that day. Trust doesn't return in a single conversation. But we chose to rebuild, slowly, this time with no secrets between us. Today, our life looks different. We have comfort, stability, and opportunities we once only dreamed of, but the values remain the same. We still drink tea together in silence. We still talk during power cuts, even when there aren't any. And every day, I remind her, and myself, that real love isn't about how much you have, but how much truth you're willing to give. If this story teaches anything, let it be this: love built on honesty may struggle, but love built on lies will always break. And sometimes, the richest thing you can offer someone is not money, but your real self. The knock on the door came just after sunset, soft but firm, the kind that carries a decision behind it. My heart pounded as I opened it and saw her standing there, not angry this time, not broken either, just tired. "I didn't come to forgive you," she said before I could speak. "I came to understand." Those words were heavier than any accusation, because they meant the story wasn't over yet, and neither was the pain that we sat across from each other, the same small space that once felt warm now filled with unspoken questions. She asked me everything: why I chose to lie, why I stayed silent even after marriage, why I didn't trust her with the truth when she trusted me with her entire life. I didn't rush my answers. I told her how I grew up surrounded by people who smiled for money and vanished without it. I told her how I was terrified that the moment she knew who I really was, her love might change, even if she didn't mean it to. "I wasn't testing you," I said quietly. "I was protecting the only pure thing I had ever found." She listened, tears sliding down her cheeks, not interrupting, not defending herself, just absorbing the truth she should have known from the beginning. She stood up suddenly, pacing the room. "Do you know what hurts the most?" she asked. "It's not that you're rich. It's that you decided for me. You took away my right to choose you fully." Her words hit me harder than anger ever could. I realized then that love isn't proven by sacrifice alone, but by respect. I had loved her deeply, but I had underestimated her strength. I apologized, not once, not carefully, but completely. I told her I was ready to walk away if that was what she needed to heal. That I would never hide again, even if the truth cost me everything. Days turned into weeks. We didn't rush back into normal life. We rebuilt it piece by piece. Sometimes she asked about my world, and I answered honestly. Sometimes she pulled away, and I let her. Trust, I learned, doesn't return because you want it to, it returns when it feels safe. One evening, she surprised me by bringing tea, smiling softly like she used to. I fell in love with a man who struggled, who respected effort, who valued simplicity, she said. And I realized, that man still exists. He just happens to be wealthy too. That was the first time hope felt real again. Our relationship changed after that, not weaker, but deeper. We talked about boundaries, honesty, and fears we had never shared before. I introduced her to my real world slowly, without forcing her into it. She taught me that love doesn't disappear when circumstances change, it evolves when both hearts are willing to grow. One night, as we stood on the balcony looking at the city lights. Thanks for watching.